How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and today we have an interesting video, something different from what we usually do on the channel, whereby I'm going to have a look at one of the other content creators' videos where they are essentially talking about why they quit World of Tanks. It is, of course, Space Bandit, and I thought this was a very interesting video to find out other people's thoughts, as well as see what they're talking about with regards to some of their own gameplay that they showcase within the video. I thought it was a really good video showcasing some of the points of what I assume a lot of players have within this game, and we'll kind of break it down. Now, some of the stuff I don't entirely agree with, which I'm pretty sure we're all entitled to our own opinion, but I thought this was a good video nonetheless. So let's have a look at exactly what Space Bandit actually says within the game, and we'll pause it at various different points, talk through what happened, and give my own kind of opinion on some things as well, and we'll do some zooms into certain things so you guys can actually see exactly what it was as well. So hopefully that will help clear up some of the issues that you're actually seeing within the game, or at least provide some explanations as to what kind of happened in some of these games, if we can. So starting off, we of course can play this clip right now. I'll put on my desktop audio so you can actually hear, but we'll skip ahead to where the video actually starts. So there's a few different things that essentially come up in this game. So there is supposedly there's unpennable vehicles, there's high pen tanks not doing any damage, super accurate artillery, and then ghost shells, etc. Loads of different things that apparently happen within the game. Now I've muted it just because there's audio issues with regards to having some audio music in the background, which not entirely sure if it's copyright, etc. Don't want to get my channel deleted for having other people's music in there. But essentially there's a variety of different clips that are shown within this by Space Bandit, and this is one of the first ones. So he's talking at the minute about how essentially he was finding that a lot of games ending up very, very quickly, and that the games are being impacted by things like RNG, ghost shells, and that sort of stuff, which is entirely true. The game is RNG related, and RNG is going to play a part in what happens in the game. And if you're even one of the best players in the game, you're going to find RNG. But the whole point is everyone gets RNG. Some people have good RNG. Some people might get unlucky in one particular game, but then get super lucky in other games, which is kind of how it works. And it provides for a more dynamic experience. From my personal opinion, if this game was entirely everyone hits exactly where they're aiming, this game would be a lot less fun. Even though that is maybe an opinion that some of you might not share. If the shell went exactly where you aimed, it would be better. Often you'll find that this would just lead to people camping all of the time, and you'll find that people would just sit back, literally waiting for people to get spotted, auto-aiming and firing on the move. It's the reason why auto-aims have been so bad right now in the game, and why it is so bad that auto-aims can essentially be pulled off when you're moving at 50 kilometers an hour, snapping someone across the map whilst they fully aimed and bounced off of you, and then they hit you directly exactly where they need to with an auto-aim. So either way, there's a few clips that I want to showcase in this kind of replay, I guess, at the moment. Hopefully the quality will get back to normal. But you can see this is a game on Rezanai. He's playing in the T-34-3. Pretty lucky shot that hit. It's on the move against an LTTG, or an LTG even. And essentially this is where it begins. So he slows down the clip here, and he's up against a VK302D, which, to all intents and purposes, doesn't really have any armor. The VK302D probably has like 140 millimeters on the lower plate, meaning that basically everything can pen it. Probably that's effective, by the way, so it probably has like 70 millimeters on the lower plate, but it has no armor. There should be no issues if he hits the lower plate in this game. But what you see here is he goes for the lower plate, he's aiming for the lower plate, but you'll see that he only ends up tracking the vehicle. Why is this? Well, you saw that if we back it up just a second, so he said that this shouldn't happen. He was aiming at the lower plate, it ends up tracking him. Well, how did it actually happen? Well, you see that the round actually veers off to the left and ends up hitting underneath the vehicle into the tracks, which is number one. So Unlucky, yes, entirely very unlucky not to just hit the lower plate. And to all intents and purposes, if I was playing a T-34-3, I'd just be aiming for the upper plate of the VKD, because you can pretty much go through it every single time. But either way, lower plate should hit, didn't hit, unfortunate, unlucky. I don't see too many issues with it, other than it unfortunately going really far off to the left, to the edge of the circle, and really low as well, to the point where it hits the track. Or potentially maybe even just bouncing off of the lower place at a weird angle, and then end up bouncing down into the tracks of the VKD. So nothing too spectacular with that one, but of course we can move on to the next one. So he takes a full reload here, and essentially he's going to try and do it again. So he's aiming for the VKD. The VKD's moving, he's aiming down, and you can see that the shell does veer off, and you saw that it actually landed about here, which is just slightly down to the left and into the tracks of the VKD, which once again, very, very unfortunate, and very, very unfortunate it happened twice in a row. But there is just how the tanks actually work. And because the VKD was moving backwards, when he fires, it's over here, but the VKD actually moved backwards, which meant that the round actually ended up traveling at the same speed in the same direction, but the VKD was moving back, which is probably why you see the round coming into the left rather than in the center of the reticle slightly, so due to lead. But yeah, unlucky that it hits the track. You saw, if we back it up just a second, hopefully we'll see it again, the round end up down in the lower bit of the vehicle, maybe slightly further back, so we should be able to see it. You can see it's going in here, and it's moving over to the left. So it's been constantly moving over to the left. It ends up hitting just into the track. So super unlucky. If it was literally like a millimeter up, would have penned that guy 100% of the time. So no two issues with that other than RNG. Once again, just being an RNG shot. Goes for another one here. You can see goes super, super low and into the tracks again. So just unfortunate. I don't see that there's much of an issue. I mean, should you be able to miss this guy so many times? But at the end of the day, you're aiming for a very, very slim lower plate, to be honest. And once again, I would just be aiming for the upper plate of the VKD. You can pen it almost every time, and you would avoid ever even needing to go near the tracks in the first place. So if that had been the case, I could 100% agree. But you can see there's another one going in and goes back down into the bottom of the tracks again. So that's kind of how it's going. And when it comes to min-maxing your tanks, obviously you want to be aiming at places where you're going to minimize your RNG potential. So if, for example, you're looking at the T71MD, a CMCD, I would want to be aiming center of mass of this vehicle. It's in a direct line away from you. And if I'm aiming directly here, the RNG circle, so where it can possibly go, is going to be all on the tank. There should be nowhere that it actually doesn't actually pen. So yeah, there's one of the directly like that. You saw T71 CMCD had his reticle basically on the entire tank, and it pens. So this is something that you can do in your games if you know that you can pen a specific area. If not, then it's just RNG dependent as to whether or not you're going to pen him, but just try and improve the potential of being able to hit. So this next shot is an interesting one. This is the LTG, which is the Soviet Tier 7 light tank. Now he gets pumped from the back of the map by the snipers on the hill, but either way decides to go over the hill, which he's going to get spotted from, and the snipers are still probably there, but he goes after this LTG, and you can see he's coming in from behind. He's looking at the LTG, and he's aiming at this spot on the tank. So it's a bit far over to the right. I would be aiming center of mass at the back of the tank over here, because with this you can either hit the tracks, which is going to not pen or do any damage, because if you hit down into this area, I don't think it's actual armor. So you're just going to end up tracking this guy, or not even tracking him, but just damaging the tracks. So that's a potential option from shooting there. Now he does correct slightly, going up to the turret. The LTG is actually renowned for bouncing off the back. It has some really weird armor, but you could see it ends up hitting the track. Which, if we have a look at the actual circle here, LTG's moving, and of course he's moving at the same time. He zooms out whilst aiming as well. So it's one of those things where it's probably, as he's moving slightly backwards, maybe he moved just a bit too early before shooting. It's hard to tell, and I don't think it's the best case in point of like RNG going outside your circle. The round looks like it just goes into the right hand side track on the LTG here, and yeah, just unfortunate there. So definitely annoying, but then again, I probably wouldn't have poked up here again after being pumped by TDs that were in the back. But yeah, a bit unfortunate with that one. If we're being super critical, I mean, I would hope that you would be able to pen him, but unfortunately Space Bandit wasn't here. And now we have another one. This is the 114 SP2, so this is another shell which he's slowed down here, but unfortunately probably hasn't paused where you see the rounds going in. So you can see here he's aiming in front of the back chat. You see that because the back chat's moving, because he fired, there's a delay on firing, as well as there's also a server side reticle versus the actual reticle that you see, which is why, say for example, I'm moving my turret really quickly and I fire and my reticle's saying I'm looking at a building, but what will actually happen is your gun's still on the server side looking somewhere else, so you have to give it time to actually correct. Now in this situation, by the looks of it, he was pretty much aiming in the same sort of direction, so server side is not necessarily that bad. But it will still play a role with regards to where you're aiming. Now, it's quite a late shot. You probably want to be looking over here if you're aiming at back chat. He moves to the side, so yeah, a bit annoyed that that probably ended up hitting the tracks. But yeah, it's just unfortunate, I think, that one again. Am I saying that, you know, you probably shouldn't pen that? Maybe RNG getting a little bit too much, but then again, I'm not entirely sure. Maybe it was just the shot, the aim, the movement. Don't know if he was moving just slightly before he aimed. And also, dependent on how fast you move your reticle and your turret at the same time versus the server side, maybe it was lagging. You don't really know. There's a lot of things that can go on in the back end that you don't necessarily know as a player unless you played a absolute ton of the game, whereby you can literally feel it. Now, that being said, I have definitely witnessed some ghost shells of myself, especially recently with the car re. We did a video on it, and I was aiming at a SU-130 PM, which we literally had the entire reticle on the side of the tank, and you also saw the tank round go directly through the tank from the side into the rear of the SU-130 PM. Now, the only thing that I can think of is that it actually, the tracer of the shell isn't entirely accurate as to where the shell actually goes, because I don't know whether Wargaming add in the tracer after the shell has already hit, or whether it's a progressive thing that happens kind of as the shell is going in. So it's kind of unknown with regards to that. Wargaming not entirely clear whether the tracer is 100% accurate to where the shell went, or is a reflection of your kind of client versus the server, whether the server has a different version of where your shell, where the tracer actually goes versus where the client side actually shows. Not entirely sure. So this could be another thing that Wargaming just aren't 100% transparent on, and maybe I'll ask them as we go forward. So you can see here, this is probably one of the more interesting clips, and we can genuinely knock this down to either A, poor aim, which is unfortunate, and I think this is definitely a case of poor aim. So you can see here, EOC even 90, if he fired right now, he'd probably about now would probably pen almost every single time. But what he does is overcorrects and actually aims way too far over to the right, and it goes in front of the EOC into the dirt at the back. And yeah, he's definitely annoyed about this. I think this is probably just poor aim. I'm not being critical. I'm sure Space Bandit is a brilliant player. I'm just saying that this shot definitely wasn't the best. And that's not a case in point for the game's accuracy doing you over. I think that was just a case in point of an EOC being such a small vehicle, moving at top speed, whilst not aiming 100%. So unfortunate in that one. Yeah, it's just annoying trying to deal with an EOC. Now, this is probably one of the more interesting bits that I've seen so far. And this is he's going in. He's got a T-34-3. So this is what the tank has been for the entire time. It's not the most accurate tank in the game by far. It has a big gun and big bloom on moving and also when you fire, as well as you're coming into close range with the tank that's so small that often you can't use the full gun depression of the T-34-3, which I think plays a part in this clip. So he goes in and you can see he's auto-aimed, this guy, and he's coming in. You can see the auto-aim lock here. And he's coming in, and what happens literally right as he's auto-aiming this guy, so he's looking as depressed as he possibly can, both probably in real life because he ended up missing this shot, and also because this one ended up looking down into the tank. But you can see here he knocks literally just into the ELC even 90, which pushes his barrel up because his tank is now rotated upwards because he's been rammed by the ELC. It's only a minute amount, but because the gun depression in T-34-3 is so so minuscule compared to a lot of other vehicles that this can change just a tiny bit, and because he's auto-aiming, it's kind of looking up. Now the reticle down here, this is your kind of target lock. That is where the tank wants to aim, but if it can't actually aim there, it won't be aiming there. So even though the reticle says that it's showing here, like you can see with the arrow, the reticle says here, you can see the tank barrel is higher, and that's because the gun depression, well, the gun can't actually depress far enough to actually hit the ELC, and you can see the ELC actually rammed him here, which is one of the reasons why the front of the tank went up then, and probably one of the reasons why the shell actually missed and went behind. So yet again, ELC, very small tank, unfortunate, ended up ramming him just at the wrong point. Probably would have penned him. You can see even here, he's still got the auto aim on, but his tank barrel or his tank gun is actually above the ELC. So this is the reason why this probably didn't actually pen. So that's one thing that I want you guys to know. As he moves backwards, he can get the depression to actually hit him. So when he's super close, unfortunately, the barrel doesn't go low enough. That is one of the things. So yeah, this next bit, this is impossible bounces. Now this is some BS, I won't lie, but there is probably a reason behind it. Once again, auto aiming the ELC even 90 here is just about to reload, and there are a few things that can happen when you auto aim. Obviously you still get dispersion, and what is likely to happen here is the shell went in about here, so not directly on the reticle. This is because of perspective. Now the reticle would have been 100% where he was aiming and where the barrel looks, but unfortunately because he's turned sideways, it looks like the shell is not going where he aims, but it's actually perspective. So if he was in line with where that was actually, like if the kind of where you want to aim in free aim versus where it's auto aim to, if they were lined up, you'd see that the shell actually went in the line, but it looks like it went over to the right. Now, it probably did go over to the right in this clip, but it ends up hitting over here, and it probably hit the track and then went in between the turret of the ELC. So it probably hit a piece of armor that can't be penned and then ricocheted off and went into the dirt. So a super BS moment where you probably just want to rage quit, but I don't think that it's not like it hit the actual armor. It hit like a really weird, very minute angle of the ELC even 90, and I'm not entirely sure whether or not that this tank would actually have the armor to actually basically to overmatch the ELC anyway. So yeah, it just depends. I mean, the ELC's armor is basically nothing, so I would have assumed that it overmatches, but overmatching World of Tanks console, bit of a weird one. I'm not entirely sure that it does work as it's intended, but yeah, a bit of an annoying one, that one. Now this next game, this is probably a bit more of a weird one, right? So there's the FV2111 here. So I'm going to slow this down super slow because it's hard to tell what actually happens when you're going in full speed. He also slows it down. So right there, you saw it looked like it went straight through the tank. Now, in all fairness, it does look like it goes through the tank. But this is where I'm starting to think that Wargaming's tracers are kind of not what you would entirely expect. So you can see he's aimed way over here, which is due to the server side versus actual client side reticles. And you see that tank round looks like it went here, right? But what actually happens, if you go back just slightly, it's hard to actually find the point at which it happens, but he's aiming way over here, and now is about where he fires roughly. So you can see the round could have potentially gone in between the FV101, the turret of it, and the actual hull. So right in between the gun, which could have potentially happened. I wouldn't discredit it. But yet again, because essentially the tracer is like, the round has already gone through probably at this point. So it's probably gone over here, straight through here. But what happens is the tracer is, of course, still there in the game. And then because it's so quick in the game to actually see, the guy runs through the tracer. And because it's not an item in the game, essentially, you can drive through it. It's just like an effect, basically. So you can drive through a person's tracer. It doesn't do anything, which probably makes it look worse than it is. So I would assume that in some part, maybe this was just a ghost shell, maybe it was, I don't know. But in terms of like potential other options, because not everything is always as it seems, it could potentially have just gone in here and just gone between, and the delay on the tracer made it look like it went straight through this guy. And I'm not saying that as I'm trying to defend wargaming or anything, trust me. I mean, if you watch any length of the videos, you'll know that we definitely don't do that when I think something is definitely wrong. But yeah, I think that could potentially have been an option there, and I have certainly had this sort of thing happen to me before, and usually it's down to the fact that you actually missed. Now he slows it down even more here. So here's the round, you see it go through, and by that point the round has already traveled through. You actually saw the shell there. So this is where I actually think I might potentially be right here. So you see the shell, it's going over here, so I would be looking at somewhere over here where it's going to land, and you see it's just about there, and then it's probably gone through in between the turret and the hull, which is why it looked like it hit the FV101. So I think that is probably the reason why. Yeah, just unfortunate in that one, I think. But yeah, hopefully you guys are kind of getting my point. This next one, I think this is definitely aim. You can even see the round. I mean, I don't think there's anything in this one other than just a miss. You can see that E50 turns right at the last minute just as he fires. He's aiming at the back of the tank. E50's moved way past. Round goes over here. Delay on moving the turret as well as E50M moving at the same time. So yeah, just a miss. I think nothing really in that one. And then if we move on, so this comes to the realm of which I haven't actually seen yet. So we've got a light tank here, M41 and Brazilian Bulldog here, and he fires, and we don't actually see where the round went. So we can't really tell if that one was actually a ghost shell. You know, there's a lot of fire and stuff like that. If he was in the sniper view, we probably would have been able to see it, but maybe if it slows down enough. You know what? What is going on here? I actually... There's no way the Bulldog fired at the same time, right, and hit the round. I don't think that's a thing. Maybe he hit the ground and it bounced off. Either way, like, this is something sus. This should not be happening. It's coming out sideways. Literally sideways out of the tank. Yeah. There's no tank over here to actually fire that way. That is some BS. I don't know what happened there. That is definitely something a bit sus with the game. Literally, I don't know what happens here, but the round comes out sideways. You can literally see the shell over here. Weird. That one is definitely something weird. That's probably the first of all of them that I think genuinely there could be something in it. I don't know what that is. But the whole premise of this video is basically that these things keep happening, and it's kind of BS. So, and it's basically stopping him from wanting to actually play the game, as I'm sure many of you do. But hopefully it kind of gives you at least an indication as to some of the things that happen that really are a bit weird. Now that one is definitely strange, but it might have just been a miss on the T49 there. Hopefully he'll slow it down so we can have a look. So he's not auto-aiming here. He's free aiming. We don't see the round. And we also don't see the smoke afterwards. So I'm hoping we might be able to see where the round went based on the smoke of the round, where it hit. Hopefully. Unless he turns too quickly. I would assume it hits the ground. That looks like a round hit on the floor. Was that there before? Should be able to find out. So these are the things that you can kind of spot in the game. Super slowed down and that sort of thing. So there is a round hit there already. It looked like it actually raised up as he went round that corner there. It's kind of hard to see. But you see the railway track? Because he's free aiming, he kind of hits the railway track as he goes up, or like a tank raises up. I don't know. Maybe it went straight through, like to the left or the right hand side. Maybe that's actually the round hit, you know. The one. I actually think this is the round where it hit. Somewhere over here. You see that there's like a dust cloud there. Literally right there. So maybe it just bounced. Maybe it missed. It didn't look like it bounced. It might have just gone up through, like, bit of BS on the RNG coming through over here somewhere. It's also hard to tell. But, you know, yet again, annoying thing. But I don't know whether wargaming can really do anything about it. Yeah, it's just one of those things. So you can see here, STI turret side. Now I'd be almost guaranteeing myself that I'd pen this right. Starting to move, so the angle can become a lot harder to pen. Now, don't quite... Yeah, it bounced. You can see the actual icon went. Yeah, I'm not surprised on that one. I was going to say... STI is moving his turret, and you see it goes orange. That's when it actually hits, so I don't think that's much in that one compared to the others that we've seen. So 6,000 damage. So he's had a good game. He's coming up against the side of the Jaegeru, hits the end of the Jaegeru, potentially even hits like the angled armor, like spaced armor at the rear of the tank. So he's aiming, course correcting, moves over to the right. Yeah, looks like it hit the spaced armor, which can be a bit weird. Yeah, that is just annoying. Because spaced armor and then hits the tracks behind, that could have potentially done that. Even with APCR from a E4. The Jaegeru's top, like this area here of the Jaegeru, you can hit the tracks and the spaced. And because he is starting to move into a different angle, like, yeah, you could have got a weird mix of both spaced armor and actual armor, and also the tracks, and at an angle slightly. Like, not a massive angle. Like, if he aimed up here, probably would have penned. But because he's aiming down here, you're more likely to hit the spaced and the tracks. Yeah, it looked like that one actually just hit the armor at a slight angle. Which would have made it more effective, and because it's spaced, because you add angle to space, makes it even harder to pen. So that's what I would say there. Yet again, if I was looking at this from a trying to get better perspective, I'd be aiming up here at the beginning, because you're more likely to pen, or I'd be aiming down here by the tracks, because by the tracks there's like a triangle, and you can pen through that, even at a silly angle, and it avoids all of the spaced armor. So that's just something you can do. Now, I don't know what is going to go on here. So we've got the Chieftain Mark 6. A Rheinmetall Panzerwagen's coming. He's free aiming with this tank, because he wants to lead the shell, which is the right thing to do. And he shoots. Now, as I said before, the reticle where you see it isn't always where it is, because of course you're looking like top down, and actually the top half of the reticle can actually be higher up on the tank. So you've almost got to think of it like if you're looking directly in line with the tank's gun, where this actually is going to be higher. So like this section of the reticle is going to actually be higher up. Because of course it's trying to make a 3D object a 2D object, because you're looking at it from a 3D kind of perspective, looking down onto the tank. And so in order to make this a circular object that is the aiming reticle, it's not in the 2D plane that the shell is traveling in. Like, they're in the two different planes. So this will actually be more like it will be upwards than it is just a circle. So it's probably just another case of missing behind. I would expect that actually just missed, like went over here somewhere. Can't really see, but I would guess it just went over there. You can even see like the dust cloud behind over there slightly. So yeah, just unlucky. And this is the sort of thing that you should always be thinking about with your tanks, is making sure to kind of aim lower than you think when it comes to this sort of close range. Now, is he going to auto aim? He doesn't auto aim here, but yeah, see, do you see what I mean with the reticle? So the reticle travels, and you'll see when it hits a bump, it suddenly like bumps upwards or down, because it's trying to show you a 2D object in like a 3D plane. And he's going to aim up here. So he's aiming at a weird angle and he tracks him. So nothing really in that one. I don't think there's anything to be said there. He was aiming in front of him, hits the track. You know, it's only going to hit the track because that is the furthest point forward, and there's no armor behind the Panzerwagen's frontal track, essentially. So he hit like the lower part of the track and there's no armor behind it to actually pen. So yeah. Once again, if I was looking at it from the perspective of someone wanting to pen, I would be aiming about here. This is where I would aim if I was looking to pen the Panzerwagen. So somewhere here, rather than like back here where he was aiming. So a bit unfortunate there. I think a lot of these are probably just RNG kind of screwing you over. Most of the time this would work, I agree. But yeah, you should really be looking for kind of first third of a tank when you're that close to pen, rather than in front, because you're so close that there is no real lead with a shell like that, especially with the Chieftain's APCR rounds. Like, it's going to pretty much go exactly where you aim it. So you got to be pretty spot on with the aim. And is his aim going to be the same here? So this, I would say, probably should pen, unless it hits the mantlet. Yeah, that looks like a mantlet shot right there. So you see, most of it's on the mantlet here, on the Leopard. Yet again, he's like looking down. Yeah, it looks like it hits like the cheek of the Leopard and bounces off. You see the round actually go up. Yeah, I'm not that surprised on that. Yet again, I would be aiming like a kind of looking further to the back of the tank at that range. But, you know, I think a lot of these probably just bad aim. By bad, I mean like as in you could have negated some of these shells if it went perfectly. Obviously, no one's shots are perfect. My shots are definitely not perfect. But yeah, like that one, that was way too low on the back of the T-54A1, which is why it ended up just going into the tracks. Yeah, but I think that's pretty much it for the video. But I thought it was an interesting topic, showcasing a couple of really weird things. Definitely the T-34-3 one, where the round came out sideways. Don't know what happened there. But yeah, definitely strange. But some of the rest of them can be probably down to RNG as well as aim. But yeah, hopefully this video at least showcased Space Bandit, and definitely go check out his content. It's interesting. And yeah, probably was a little bit salty making this video, so some of the clips in here probably not the best. But at the end of the day, that is this game. It can screw you over sometimes, and yeah, you got to take the good with the bad. And yeah, I'm definitely, there are times where it should pen. There are times where maybe the RNG gets you and you end up not penning where you think that you should have. But hopefully this video was good enough for you and you enjoyed at least letting me critique some of the gameplay. and showcase some of the clips by Space Bandit here and his video. I highly recommend going and checking out the video. I will link it in the description down below so you can see the audio, as there was some music playing in the background. I don't know if it's licensed, etc. I don't want to get into trouble. So yeah, hopefully you at least saw the game clips. I think it was a really good video. And definitely the frustrations that you see by Space Bandit are definitely warranted with regards to some of the aspects of the game. And I've definitely been feeling them, where the auto aim / actual aiming just doesn't feel rewarding, that sort of stuff. It really is an issue right now in the game, and I'm not surprised that a lot of people quit World of Tanks console, at least for a little bit. As usual, people always come crawling back at some point, and I've definitely been an advocate for that. I definitely recommend going and taking a break if you're finding the game not so enjoyable, and then coming back a bit more refreshed if you want to. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, like it, and also go check out Space Bandit as well. And I will see you in the next video coming soon. Goodbye.